first female police officer. All three of those characters are based on real people, which is sort of amazing. We, of course, have made certain changes to make the story more interesting and entertaining. So as soon as I knew Jessie Buckley could join us in the cast, I wanted to make Rose Irish, so she wasn't originally. But otherwise, her story is she's a single mum who moves into this very small town, and even that on its own is scandalous, up against the very restrained Swan family.
Yes, and I suppose knowing what you know then of what is accurate to that time, how did you come across these letters? How were they found? And I suppose in some way that must have really drawn you to it, that it's based on truth.
Absolutely. I was given the script originally not knowing that it was based on a true story.
Okay.
So, and I honestly have not laughed out loud for quite a while with a script that was as well written and as tight written as this. The thing I couldn't quite gauge when I first read it was the tone of it, because I didn't quite understand what you said, black comedy, which is interesting. Some people describe it purely as a comedy. But there is a lot going on underneath it, and these characters are very, very complex. So I met with the writer, John Sweet, who is a comedian originally, which made sense of the comedy, and learned that he had come across the story of these poison pen letters, and that was a massive thing 100 years ago, which of course the parallels to today are very obvious, and couldn't believe that this story hadn't really surfaced in some bigger format, and so he was inspired to write a story. And as soon as I read it, Olivia was already attached, and I couldn't begin to say no. It's a dream come true.
Can you imagine writing such a stuff?
I'm pleased to say I can't, but I didn't think that. I thought you were going to ask me something to do with, again, today.
Which I want to come to, but it's just the idea of trying to get yourself into, you've been looking at this and how to bring the characters out and put it together, but just trying to get yourself into a headspace where you would sit down, because even though, we'll come to it, I'm sure, talking about what people do online now, it's much quicker and easier than sitting down and writing.
Absolutely, and that's what's so amazing about them. Some of them were incredibly short, 2 sentences, and vile. Others, the ones that really make me laugh, are the ones that you can feel they're trying to be rude, and it's almost like a little kid who sort of gets in a massive huff with his mum and is like, oh, I hate you, and it's got that sort of childish quality behind it. And yet still, as you say, in those days, if you wanted to insult somebody, you had to get your piece of paper, you had to get your pen out, choose your words carefully, fold it up, get a stamp, put it in the post box, and there's a lot of effort that goes into it. And obviously, nowadays, that's one of the things that's so different. There was, in those days, plenty of time to change your mind. Nowadays, maybe at most, people write a draft email that they want to send in an absolute rage, come back to it an hour later, and you might have changed your mind. But I think today's society, one of the sort of drawbacks is this sort of instantaneous world that we live in that was very, very different then. Would be huge, partly because people don't do that anymore.
I think, what's interesting, although it's very funny and there's all those elements to it, that you can see how upset, you can see the upset on people's faces when they receive it. Putting aside the views of if it was a woman swearing or not, and I think if more people could actually see how people looked when they received a nasty remark below their Instagram posts or on social media, wherever, maybe it would be divorce.
Well, would it?
I don't know.
No, I know.
That's the issue.
Absolutely. Olivia Colman isn't on social media. I don't think Jessie is either. They're not on Instagram. They don't. Nor am I. And Olivia is very vocal about having been hurt by something somebody once said many years ago, and it's very painful. What they do for a living is very vulnerable making, and it's can be incredibly hurtful. And it's, you know, sometimes you have to ask the question. And again, as parents, I'm sure you have this too. You know, I've had many conversations with other mums, other dads, and with kids about what it is behind somebody else wanting to hurt somebody else, what that's about. And it's very, you know, it's one thing to do that with a 5-year-old at school, it's completely understandable. It becomes much more complex as people get older and are much more in charge of that choice.
Are you not on social media because you also received something and you thought maybe this isn't worth it, or?
For me, it's more to do with the time that it takes, that I see what it sucks up in people's lives, if I'm honest. But yeah, instinctively, I don't like that aspect to it. There are some brilliant elements to it. I have 2 teenage kids, and neither one of them post things either. And somebody asked me yesterday about whether is that a direct influence from me. I don't know. I've never said you're not allowed to. You know, I don't live in that sort of household. But I've certainly seen people teenagers get incredibly upset, and it's just so affecting, and it's so quick, it's so easy to do. And there's, like I said, for me, that it's that time that it takes to think about what it is you've just said that is taken away with the instantaneousness of it.
I don't actually think I've said this before, but I had a thing when I was on maternity leave. I came back in September, where I got a really horrible message from a woman, and I saw it, and it was a whole judgment. I posted one I barely posted while I was on maternity leave. I only usually use it for work, and I posted this photo, and I was going to a museum, and I was on my own, and I've got my sunglasses on, and I sort of thought, right, I'm a little bit back out there again. And it was one of those sorts of, I'm going to see this exhibition, I had to share if I'm seeing something interesting and promote people's work, you know, as well, you know, just have that creative moment. But it was also, I'm out the house. It was as simple as
I'm having a moment for myself.
And she said, you need to look at yourself for people who do not have your privileges, to wear nice clothes. It was like a really pointed, and you know, you've just had a baby, where's the baby? It was a whole comment, right?
And how did it leave you feeling?
And I felt so... Actually, I did something I never do. I wrote back.
Did you?
I never do that, and I rarely look at the comments. And just to say...
And did you do that publicly, or did you do that privately?
No, I did it privately.
Okay.
And I wrote, because I have more followers than she will in the position I'm in, and I'm aware of that platform. And, you know, I've been on social media for more than 10 years, and I wrote back and I said, just so you know, I think I even said, the blaze is from Zara, it's 20 years old and costs 15 quid. Not that I need to justify, you look very